Welcome to Night City. The alleys are full of bugs, and the local Jiminy Cricket is only as cool as the Polish writers can make him sound.
What a steaming load of shit. Let's go.
Okay, by now you've heard it all. What's left to be said about Cyberpunk 2077? We've had the death threats, the conspiracy theories, the heads of CDPR coming hat in hand to beg your forgiveness, classic modern discourse, fanatics licking boots, haters gonna hate, and game journalists foaming at the mouth for clicks and rent. The truth about Cyberpunk 2077 is that the longer you wait to play it, the better your experience with the game is gonna be. When it's good, let me tell you, it is so good. That's it. That's the video. Go home. Nothing much else to see here. You still here? Ugh. Alright, let's get into everything. Cyberpunk is a tale of corporate greed and existentialism. To V or not to V? That is the question. You play an incredibly typical hero type with one of three backgrounds that don't really matter that much. Double-crossed and in over your head, a massive conspiracy unravels itself for the first few hours. The danger, you're told, is that if you don't do something quickly, V will cease to be V. But after 50 to 60 hours of side questing, the threat is largely toothless. The only sign you're ever in trouble is the occasional glitchy UI and a little coughing. But in seconds, you're back to curb-stomping thugs in an alley. This is just the first in a long list of great ideas, but no polish. The plot itself is standard fare. It's the kind of thing you've seen before. So we're not going to go too into depth with that. It doesn't really matter. Just know that while it will throw surprises at you from time to time, it is more referential than original. Alright, first things first. Let's get through the stats. Time played? 86 hours. Difficulty setting? Very hard. Played entirely on version 1.06. I did every single available crime, mission, side gig, but I didn't buy every car. One thing Cyberpunk 2077 does very well is give you the feeling of roleplay. The backgrounds are complete window dressing, and the stat-based dialogue is very shallow. But the skill trees are so elaborate and so expansive that they allow you to take a deeper interest in how you're playing out your character in your mind. Are you a hacker? Are you a beefy bouncer? Are you a sniper? Are you a headshotting silenced pistol professional? You just need a little imagination in how you approach the role that you are playing. I played a corpo, which I think is probably going to be the most popular choice for first playthroughs. I figured I would have to focus on stealth, using a silenced revolver to pop heads since I was aiming for a very hard completion. And that worked out pretty well. Maybe too well. Cyberpunk is not a difficult game. If you've got the right build, you're just gonna walk right through it. Had I decided to focus on melee, pushing body and reflex stats up, I think I would have been picked apart like fresh bread. However, being too effective comes with its own problems, boredom being the main one. After some time, I decided to branch out into quick hacking, and it did feel very rewarding. Every time you do something in this game, you're rewarded with experience points for what you do. Having said that, quick hacking is going to be to Cyberpunk what the bow is to Skyrim. It's just too powerful not to lean on. With quick hacking, you are given the tools to deafen, blind, burn out, and just outright turn off your enemies. For a little added challenge later on, I ended up blinding my enemies, running around, and snapping their necks like a psychotic Rambo on arm day. There are enough approaches in this game that if you get bored doing one thing, you can evolve and try other things. But this does detract from the apparent replayability, since you'll end up doing it all in your first playthrough. There are 5 stats in the game: body, reflexes, technical ability, intelligence, and my personal favorite, cool. I won't go too in detail about these, but essentially body is tested for carjacking and ripping turrets apart. Technical ability is tested for turning off cameras and opening doors. Reflexes, well, I never really experienced reflexes, so never mind. Intelligence was used for hacking computers, and cool tested for how much of a Keanu Reeves knockoff you could sound like. There are quite a few dialogue choices locked out depending on your stats, and while they're mostly superficial, it's more than most modern RPGs offer. I'm looking at you, Fallout 4. You know, I think that's okay. It's unreasonable to want developers to build an entire game around a stat choice, but if it was put in here to make it feel more like a role-playing game than a rail-playing game. If you're looking for richer choices based on stats, Cyberpunk may not scratch your itch, but it does something. If I had to plot my sentiment through the 86 hours I played this game, I'd say the first 10 hours are mind-blowing. As you become more accustomed to Night City, you might become less impressed, but that's the human condition, chasing the next high. I played a bit of LA Noire after finishing Cyberpunk, and then came back to try a different ending and was blown away all over again. So I can tell you that yes, the overworld is gorgeous, even if we get desensitized to it over time. You'll want to read every piece of lore. Every access point will be hacked, and you'll approach enemies with care. The next 20 to 40 hours is going to be based on how you approach the game, depending on whether you blitz through the storyline or focus on side content. You see, the experience will dull, and as each visual glitch or sound bug tears you out of the promise of next generation gaming, you might be a bit disappointed. Personally, I was systematically doing every side gig and crime per area, like ticking boxes off of a list, and because of that, it started to feel a bit grindy. However, occasionally, I would be taken aback by the amazing side gigs, which are like little bite-sized plots in themselves. Trust me, you're gonna love the side gigs. You'll skip more and more of the lore by this time though, and you'll hack less access points, and basically ruffle stomp enemies like a bag of cheese curls. Seriously, this is an easy game. The final stretch of the game returns to the highs of the first 10 hours. It's the storyline, which CDPR's writers took great care to unfold, that is the highlights. I promised myself I wouldn't go into the plot, and I won't, but know that when attention is paid to it, it is done very well. You'll have to make a lot of choices, and they can lead to vastly different outcomes. It's just disappointing that everything up until this last stretch is not as important as it could be. At the end of the day, I can't review this game for you. I can try to prepare your mindset to enjoy it, because there is so much to love. If you go in with a positive mindset gained from experiences like Fallout New Vegas, Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines, and Deus Ex, all of which did have bugs in them, you're gonna have a good time. If you go in expecting Cyberpunk GTA, then you're gonna hate it. Point is, your experience is relative to your expectation, and unfortunately the marketing department earned their bread by getting your expectations as high as humanly possible, much to the eye rolls, groans, and outright slavery experienced in the development. Having said that, let's talk details. The gameplay is really cool, and there are a lot of ways to approach combat, mostly thanks to quick hacks. The story is maybe not the most original one out there, but it unfolds itself more than competently enough to be considered a positive. A ton of lore is scattered throughout the world in the form of shards. If you like to take your time and read everything, you're gonna have a bible of exposition to enjoy on the side. The design of the city is crazy good. Once you get the fortified ankles, which let you jump really high, you'll even find yourself enjoying rooftop parkour. It's not just the flat tops, there's lateral sense to the world, and it's exciting to reach high areas you may feel should be out of your reach. The photo mode is so much fun. This game was made for the gorgeous vistas you'll capture. Sorry last gen, it's not your fault, you're just not ready. The return of stat-based dialogue choices is welcomed. The skill trees are massive, and there are a lot of choices here to personalize your style of play, though you may just end up relying on quick hacking every playthrough. Experience is awarded for just about every action, and that feels good. Dumping bodies in bins, earn stealth. Shoot someone in the head, earn cold blood. Turn off cameras, earn engineering, etc, etc. This feels good as it builds your character up uniquely depending on how you naturally play. The variety of spaces, magnificent open regions, each have their own identity, from the Santa Monica-esque Pacifica to the Grove Street Santo Domingo to the slums of Watson. You'll feel the difference and identity in each region. Not to mention that day and night feel like, well, day and night, given a Fifth Element-like day bursting with color, and a Blade Runner noir vibe at night. Now let's get to the bad stuff. One big problem that persists even from The Witcher 3 is that at some point you become a literal living god, with nothing to challenge you ever again. For me, that was around level 30. I was unstoppable even to level 50 enemies, and that's when gameplay starts to feel like a chore. The AI of enemies is bad, like really, really bad. It's kind of comparable to Skyrim's awful AI, but worse because you can kill someone standing shoulder to shoulder with someone else, and they'll just stand there too deep in thoughts about their choices in life to acknowledge it's about to end for them. The default control scheme is so messed up. You hold the R button to pick up a body, and you press the R button to equip a weapon upon pickup. So imagine how often you want to pick up a body to dump it in a bin, only to equip their dumb weapon. Now you have to open the menu and re-equip your weapon. Reversing this control would solve the problem, but there you go. It's that simple, and they didn't do it. Another is the C button, which is used for crouch and skipping dialogue. So if someone's talking to you and you need to crouch, you won't. You'll either skip their dialogue or get shot in the head, or not crouch at all and get shot in the head. Either way, you're getting shot in the head. As massive as the skill tree is, there are a lot of skills that are just useless or uninspired passive effects. The cops just spawn, they're crack shots, but they also have the memory of a fishbowl. It's just not that fun, and the game probably would have been better without a cop system at all. On top of that, having it just opens up comparisons to GTA 5, and the more this game distances itself from that, the better. But it seems to actually want to invite that, so it's a victim of its own flippin' ambition. We'd need an entire section just for the bugs and glitches, but in my opinion, the worst has to be the sound ones. Dialogue always sounds like it's being processed through an echo. Sometimes the background white noise from scanning just continues scanning after you're done, and you have to rescan to reset it. It's such a chore. Characters talk over themselves if you don't stand completely still, and personally I like to keep moving. It's just really sloppy stuff. Sometimes your response to dialogue is timed, but you're never really punished for letting it run on. It would have been nice if doing so was like an additional dialogue choice, and the change in response was noted, but it isn't. It normally just continues the conversation as normal, and you've only missed out a piece of dialogue. Massive opportunities were lost here. There could have been some very interesting twists, leaving the dialogue to go. Visual glitches are common. If you've ever seen a crucified NPC and raged, you're gonna hate this game. Personally, I just laugh. It's nothing we haven't seen in Skyrim, but it's worth noting. Random deaths from surface clipping is seriously amateur hour. I'd get wedged between two things that totally look open and die instantly. The stats screen is just broken for me. There's no way the numbers are accurate, and that's not on. I want to take pride in my plus 400% crit damage, but you're not showing that to me. The variety of upgrades and mods is lacking, and rather disappointing. Some abilities don't level well. For example, I've run from place to place more than I drove, and by the end of 86 hours, my athletics stat was 4. 20 is the max. And unless you're jumping for 20 hours, I'm just not sure how you'll ever reach that. In fact, I did just about everything, and the only stats that got close to 20 were Cold Blood and Break Protocol. I suppose you could hit 20 and something if you just did that thing the whole playthrough, but as I said, it can feel grindy, and switching up your playstyle is a breath of fresh air. The races in the game are not fun. The design choice to spawn your enemies behind you, even when they crash, really makes you question the point of racing. I mean, if you look at the minimap, you'll see them blinking in and out of existence, and when you look behind you, you see them spawn in. Other games I believe do the same, but if you can look back and see them spawn each time, it's definitely janky. Shards and the hacked computers are sometimes just completely blank. These are small issues, but they're also totally unnecessary. Oh, ladders suck. Enough said. But we're not done here. I saved the best for last. Look, there's a lot I can forgive CDPR for. I mean, the example set by AAA studios like EA, Ubisoft, and that kind of thing is there, and any criticism levied against CDPR for their hype cycle, rushed release, and poor communication is more indicative of the industry as a whole, and we should definitely speak out about that. maybe not lay all the blame at their feet for this, because too many of us have accepted this piss-poor behavior from the big boys to now suddenly spark a revolution and behead CDPR. But the one thing that can and should be damned of CDPR specifically is the decision to suppress console reviews. When Marcin Iwinski said that the console copies were tested and found to be surprisingly solid, I gagged. If this were the case, there would not have been an NDA for the console versions. This shows a massive contradiction, the evidence of an outright lie even. I can think of no good reason to give CDPR a pass on that specific topic. Bugs? They happen. Overhype, undersell? Seen it all before. Too ambitious? Yeah, okay. But outright hide console reviews and then act surprised in your apology because they ran well in testing? Absolute bullshit. Honestly, whether CDPR approached this like No Man's Sky or not is not enough. The reliance on shareholder interest and investment is rotten to the core. It's hard not to see the greed in the room when you release a product unfit to be called a beta, sell so much based on unearned hype, and then lie about it in an apology. Alright, it's time for the conclusion. Here it is. This game is not the demonic presence that game journalists seem to think it is. This game is not the giant leap forward into the future that CDPR seems to think it is. This game is not the gamer messiah that fanatics seem to think it is, and it is not the piece of trash that dogpiling haters seem to think it is. This game isn't even finished. It's a playable mess. And while it will eventually be amongst the best games ever made, it will never be one of the best games ever released. The sad fact about Cyberpunk is that on its own merits, it isn't particularly groundbreaking. The mechanics we see in this, we've seen in RPG games before. Graphically speaking, this game is a step forward. Everything else is a return to form. Because AAA gaming has become so shallow and void of ambition that even in its failing, Cyberpunk is successful for presenting a deeper experience than 90% of the trash that has been released over the last 10 years. The bottom line is, you need to manage your expectations better than CDPR managed to manage your expectations. It's not your fault for expecting as much as you did from Cyberpunk. The Witcher 3 is The Witcher 3. Gwent is very good. They've done an amazing job with Thronebreaker. CDPR has earned the respect that they had, but now they've squandered it because they wanted to make some extra bucks. That's the sad fact of AAA gaming, unfortunately. I would say to everybody wanting to know what to do about Cyberpunk 2077, here it is. Wait. Wait for them to finish the game. Don't be a beta tester. Don't be in a rush. Beat them at their own game and wait it out. If the shareholders lose interest in the company and move on, all the more better for it. Unfortunately, maybe the genie is out the bottle and there's no way to get the greedy eyes of the shareholders off of the gaming industry, considering it is the #1 entertainment industry in the world today. Thank you for watching the video. I hope that if you were sitting on the fence about this game, that you stay there until the game is ready. If you leave a like or a sub to the channel, it would make me so happy. You can catch us on Twitch Monday to Thursdays, and we focus on variety and chatting about media. See you around!